Guys, good Monday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk here on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, the world, right here on the I Love CVille Network, presented by the trusted and relied upon Keller Williams Alliance. Today's program is dynamite. We have, once again, a fabulous panel of experts and stakeholders in our community, folks that know topics that matter dearly to you, and that is housing. That is where housing is going to go, how interest rates, tight inventory are going to impact markets, and frankly, for a lot of us, our most important possession and item in our retirement portfolio are homes. Judah Wickower is our fabulous director. Judah, if we can go to the foreshot and let's welcome our panel of experts and our friends that will entertain for the next hour and change. Nikki Chambless, Jason Kirby, and Kara Bass on the program. First, good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Absolute pleasure to have you guys. Nikki, another panel you've put together of tremendous proportions.
I love it. Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate. Like, I have amazing people around me. So as long as I can get one of them who has a gap in their Monday or who is willing to reserve a gap in their Monday, which is kind of hard to do in the industry that I work in, right? But if I can find some people like I have today who are amazing and carved out time for me, yeah, you just can't go wrong.
I love it. I love it. So you know Jason Kirby, you know Nikki Chambless, Kara Bass, her first time on the network. She is a realtor. She is on television.
Doing all the things.
She's closing big deals that I wish we could talk about, and I know it's going to come on the feed about Belmont Market, but we're not going to chat about this until closing.
My return episode.
We respect her too much, and I'm just saying that because I see the comments already coming in about the Belmont Market. All right, so Kara, why don't we introduce yourself to everybody that's watching the show?
Sure, yeah. My name is Kara Bass. I am a realtor with Keller Williams Alliance here in Charlottesville. I have been a realtor for 8 short months, but I am feeling good about where it's headed and being involved in the industry, yeah.
Fantastic. What do you love about the Keller Williams team?
Just like a great example are the people here in the studio with me. They have been so supportive, so knowledgeable. I mean, such a resource for me as a new agent, and they've really allowed me to get to where I'm going and where I'm at now.
Awesome. Jason Kirby is one of those resources right there. We
100%.
love, dude, I hear this from everybody, Jason. We love when Jason is on the show. He not only is a support structure for many on the Keller Williams team, he is a relied upon agent in car across the board, and he coins phrases like complimentary seller possession, a phrase literally, I'm rarely at a loss for words. When you said that on the show last time, I stopped. I don't know if you looked at the replay, and I was stunned. Jason Kirby, the show is yours. Introduce yourself to everybody that's watching.
Good morning. Thanks, Jerry. Jason Kirby. So I've been at Keller Williams now for about 5 years. This is my, I think, 6th year, and in the Charlottesville area for the same amount of time. And I manage the day-to-day operations of the Beckham real estate team for Quinton Beckham.
Fantastic. Nikki Chambless, jump in here. Introduce yourself. I know everyone knows you, and then we'll get into some of the topics du jour.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Nikki Chambless, and I'm a realtor with Keller Williams Alliance as well. I'm currently a team leader, though, so instead of working with buyers and sellers directly, what I do is I work with agents, and I help them build wonderfully successful businesses.
We love this panel. I think a topic that is gaining some traction, we posted this morning. Jason, we'll start with you. Zillow, they put out a piece of commentary that's been syndicated across all the finance and housing publications now. It's funny how a brand like Zillow puts something out, and then Fortune magazine and Forbes and all these other outlets start syndicating the identical piece. So now it's ubiquitous content out there. Zillow says the housing market is going to have its wildest swing in the very near months. Yeah. And I saw the headline and I was like, good God, how can it be any more wild? This is like the Loch Ness Monster or Drakenfire or roller coaster over the last 18 months. They are predicting, and I'll get out of your way here and then throw it to you guys. Beyond May, Zillow foresees the housing market and home prices year over year to jump 18.8%, an uptick larger than any 12-month period leading up to, unfortunately, the 2008 crash. I'm going to get out of your way. Your thoughts on this topic?
Sure. I think that initially as agents, we look at that and our first question is, well, it's Zillow, right? So we
Always,
try to
yeah.
put that in context. And so there's a bit of difference between Zillow's economic research department and their automated valuation model. And the automated valuation model, which is the Zestimate, is what they used to bet big on, and they lost about $500 million doing that. But their economic research is not tied into that. I think the news with this is that despite international turmoil, despite rising rates, Zillow is seeing this shortage of inventory as, despite everything else, going to result in probably maybe the biggest price increase we've seen. And I think as an agent from day to day, we're having fewer of these stories about buyers losing on bidding wars, but the reason why is there are fewer homes for them to lose on. So we could easily see something like this happen here, even in our market, maybe more.
What do you think, Nikki Chambless?
Well, so I guess my biggest question is I'm actually looking at that graph that's in the article we're talking about, right? And the graph, I don't know if it's just bad graphing or if what I'm reading is not matching the graph, but on the graph, it shows the biggest uptick having already happened, 2020 to 2021, and that what they're predicting right now is actually kind of a small uptick compared to that, and also still not the downfall that some people are very, very concerned about, right? So when I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, so I almost feel like some of this is a little bit of clickbait mixed in with some really great economist information, which I guess is really what you have to do on the internet anyway to get eyeballs on your article, right?
Kara, we're going to get you in the mix here. We
Yeah.
have tighter inventory. I was speaking with a few agents from other teams earlier today, and the expectation from them was the inventory was going to get tighter.
Yeah.
We know interest rates are going up. Rates going up are pricing buyers out of the market. We'll just cut to the chase. That's just the nature of rates going up.
Yes.
We've highlighted how taxes can impact buyer purchasing power as well. What do you make of this? I mean, how do you see this market and the direction the market is heading?
I mean, I think it's hard for people to wrap their heads around, and like we don't want to really acknowledge that that's what's really happening. It's a hard pill to swallow, right? Like you don't want to be pushed out of your own neighborhood or where you'd like to be or where you're from. And so that's a hard pill to swallow, I think. Change is hard for a lot of people, and just coming to that realization that these are the facts and that is the direction it's going can be just hard for a lot of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Jason, you see no cooling coming up in this market?
I haven't because the supply and demand is so far out of whack that I don't see where that is going to change. Absent a massive shock to the system that causes a large portion of the buyer pool to just go away, I don't know where else they're going to go. And we're seeing this reflected too. I mean, when we think of alternatives, it's still cheaper to own than to buy. It's still cheaper to own than to rent. And if the rental rates are skyrocketing and rates are going up, it's not going to push people into that rental market, which would make the difference in the resale market for us. So no, it still seems like shortage of inventory. And most home sellers are still very concerned about, well, if I put it on the market, where am I going to go?
Nikki?
No, I can't disagree with anything that anyone has said here at all. It is a very challenging market. It is a market that none of us like. I have yet to have a conversation or hear a conversation around realtors where they're like, oh my God, I love this, because they don't. This is not fun. People think because the prices are higher that maybe we would like this. We do not. It is not good for our clients. It is not good for the economy. There's just so much that is very challenging about this. And so what we try really hard to do is help our people the best that we can, right? Educate, and doing as much of that up front as possible. In the past, like 10 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, you might not have an initial buyer consult. It has always been recommended. And you might go show a few houses before you and educate while you show. Now you really need that buyer consult up front, just like you need that listing consult up front. You need to be able to sit down and educate people and make sure everybody's on the same page and they know what's going on.
Well said. So comments are coming in fast and furious already. We have Jason. How long have you been in the business?
I first licensed in '99, but I took an extended break, so about 14 years in the industry total.
Wow.
Okay, 14 years in the industry total. She's been in the business and has seasoned experience. 8 months in over here. So I want to highlight the dichotomy of getting into this market.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the craziest times in the history of real estate. We will get to that here in about 15 seconds. Joanne Mackey, Queen of Keswick, we'll get to your comments here on Facebook. We'll get to the comments coming in on Twitter, on Spotify. Danny O'Day will get to your comments on LinkedIn. Lee Elberson will get to your comments on LinkedIn. I see 3 states and, 15 or 16 zip codes right now on our heat map. Before, let's highlight Kara and getting into a business at a time that it literally has been a freaking roller coaster. I mean, has it not been a roller coaster?
It has.
In real estate. 8 months in. Tell us why you got into real estate and what it's like to ride this ride 8 months into this.
Yeah, so, I got into real estate. My parents do real estate. My stepdad does a lot of commercial. He's been doing commercial for 10 plus years. My mom kind of helped him on an admin level. So like our kitchen table conversations were often lot size or pricing or the market, so it wasn't that necessarily, foreign to me as a whole. And so my mom always, my whole life, was like, you got to be a realtor. You'd be great. You got to be a realtor. I had been traveling a lot, and you got to be in one place, in one market in order to be a realtor. So when I finally kind of put roots down in Virginia again as an adult, I thought, okay, maybe now it's my time to kind of get into something that I always wanted to do, but I just never been around for. With that being said, getting into a market that is absolutely nuts is interesting, right? I'm a believer that like pressure makes diamonds, and so I just gotta keep my head down and like stay focused and try to do the best that I can. I feel like because this market is so wild, I'm learning all the time how to be more competitive, how to get my buyers what they want, how in a market where inventory is super low, and learning those strategies because we have to now, otherwise you don't have a chance. So that's been interesting. But honestly, on the flip side of that, if you don't know any better because you've never done real estate, this is normal for me. I mean, this is all I've ever known.
Right.
So maybe if things calm down, I'll be like, oh, amazing.
Has it been challenging?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an analogy in real estate, at least at Keller Williams, when you start, it's like trying to drink from a water hose or a fire hydrant or something like that.
Yep, fire hose.
Really intense information coming at you from all sides, and you're trying to decipher it and figure out where you should spend your time and what the things you should do and how to block your schedule and the meetings you should be taking versus not being taken and all kinds of things. And so, yeah, it's been a huge learning curve for sure. I'm just taking it day by day.
Okay, one follow-up, then Jason, get in the mix here. Nikki, you get in the mix here. Guys, we cannot analyze the development market listing as much as we want to do this here.
Next time.
Can you highlight in general terms how you get iconic listings, if you may, like that? Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
And this is I think like a great life lesson as a whole. So I had planted a seed way back 10 years ago when I was 19 that I didn't even know I had planted. And then when it came along and it sprouted and I knew these people and they said, oh my God, you're in real estate now. I would love to work with you. It was just like, oh, just by, being nice to these people, they remembered me from when I wasn't even close to doing real estate. And then now that I am in real estate, they trusted me based on a relationship that I had started 10 years prior. So I think it's a good thing to remember as you go throughout your day that you need to be kind to people because you never know how it could, in the future, 10 years later, come back tenfold,
Well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
That's a life lesson right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So comments are coming in fast and furious. Jason and Nikki, we'll get you in the mix here.
Okay.
Danny O'Day, amazing panel this morning. I would love to hear their honest assessment. Does this make the idea of owning a home in Charlottesville and Albemarle County for the first-time home buyers with previously middle-class, respectable jobs a complete pipe dream? He's referencing the Zillow topic. He says, is owning a home now for the middle class with respectable jobs now a pipe dream? He also adds on the I Love CVille Facebook group, Danny, good comments from you this morning. And Jason, why don't we throw this to you? It's going to be really difficult for the group currently aged 20 to 30 years old to build any sort of significant lasting wealth of something if something doesn't change real soon.
I think it's a very valid concern in this market, and it changes the further out of town that you go. That being said, I have represented first-time home buyers in that age demographic, and we've been able to secure housing. It is harder to do, though, for sure, and it involves a lot of prep work to make sure everything just aligns correctly. The opportunities in the market are far fewer, and just last week, there was an opportunity that popped up, and we were able to seize the moment. We acted the fastest, and everything lined up just wonderfully for this particular home buyer. There were days when I would be working with this client, and honestly, there were days when I felt like I was kind of losing hope. And then something happened, and it worked and it clicked, but we were ready for the opportunity. I do think it is a market for very serious buyers. Mm-hmm. And in our trade, there are buyers who are at various levels of readiness, and there's nothing wrong with that. But unless someone has a more immediate need and has gone through that preparation work, it may not be the right market for them. It's pretty intense. It's still possible, but it's certainly not as easy as it was 3-4 years ago.
What do you think, Nikki?
I agree 100%. It is not a pipe dream, which I think is exactly what Jason said with a lot more information, right? Because it's not. And you have to be ready for this market. You have to be willing, ready, able, and very, very well prepared.
This is from Joanne Mackey. She's an economist watching in Keswick. We've dubbed her the Queen of Keswick because of her fantastic commentary on the show. She says 2008 had junk bond backing mortgages with 0 down payments. Now, in today's market, we do not see the adjustable rate mortgages that many did not understand in 2008, 2009, 2010. Mm-hmm. She says rates are rising, but most have fixed rate mortgages and hurdles to jump through now when compared to 2008. I'll add background there. She's basically alluding to the regulatory nature of getting financing now when compared to 13, 14 years ago when anyone was getting loans. Mm-hmm. And finally, she concludes with this, and Nikki, we'll throw this to you, then Jason, then Kara. These are reasons why people are not jumping from property to property, and as millennials enter the market, nothing to buy. There is nothing to buy and very little inventory, so the competition is intense. She also adds, this is why I don't think a housing crisis or crash is on the horizon. Nikki Chambless, you want to jump in here?
She's correct. She knows what she's talking about, right? And I wouldn't say there's nothing to buy, but it feels like that. It does. The inventory being this low is incredibly challenging, and it does make it really hard. So you do have to be in the right situation. So if you're looking to sell your home, and maybe it's because you have to move, right? Or maybe it's because you're looking at, oh, I can sell my house for this much, and my mortgage is actually paid off, right? This could be a good life decision. What are those next steps? So there really has to be quite the process, quite the conversation. Maybe it's something that someone who owns a home has already had and figured out on their own. Maybe it's something where they need some guidance from that realtor, from that local trusted advisor, right? So it varies greatly. We do live in an area where people move in and out because they have to for work. The hospital, the school, the military-related contractors we have. All of those things mean we have a lot of transitory nature for our area, considering we are not a military-based community, right? Yeah. So we are going to have some transition. And even with that, it's not really enough inventory to cover the needs of the people who want to buy and who would love to be able to better their future because of buying a home.
I sent a text message, Jason, to a friend today about the Zillow article, and he sent that to me. I said home ownership is going to exacerbate the wealth gap in this country, even more so than ever before.
Yes, yeah. And back to the watcher from Keswick, I think she's spot on. The differences because I was in the industry at that time, and so a few factors were at play. Overconstruction. There were no buyers for a lot of those homes. Speculation. A lot of them by agents. I remember, so at that time I had a company that was, Realtors were our clients. I had about 1,200 agents as customers. And one of them had bought 13 homes in the prior 12 months. And there were no buyers for those homes, but she was basically buying early on in the construction phase, reselling before it was finished, and they would pocket $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in difference. The music stopped. Right, and anyone that was holding a home went under pretty much. Lax lending standards and a lot of fraud to throw into the pot. None of that is really going on right now. We have a supply and demand issue that is fueling these price increases. And I think those are the real fundamental differences between the two. So there are functioning economies at work where homeownership is less likely or less possible. It's just we're not that used to it in this market here and in most markets in this country. You look at like Hong Kong. a lot of people don't own a home in Hong Kong.
Oh.
They find other ways to build their wealth and save over time. But home ownership has been such a vehicle for wealth accumulation in this country that, yeah, one of my fears is you're going to have much less of that. So you're going to have fewer people rising that economic strata. And then also, I think the danger we run is that communities where people are genuine stakeholders and own the properties they're in tend to be highly functional, well-run communities. And when we rent, it's human nature. When we rent, we don't really genuinely care as much about the home as we do when we own a home. That's usually the case. Or feel as connected to our community. So it's definitely a corner we're turning.
Elena Mangione is watching in Amsterdam, and she says she loves some Nikki and some Jason Kirby, literally watching in Amsterdam right now.
Hello, Elena.
We are international
life.
as we
Who doesn't
speak.
love you guys?
Elena Mangione, we love you. Kara, let's get you in the mix here. So you are 8 months into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in a real estate family.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume, but I think this is a safe comment. The youngest person on this table right here and this panel.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. I think so.
Most
I
definitely.
had to
That's a
guess,
safe
yeah.
Okay, I'm
assumption.
gonna say that as well.
I am said millennial.
Okay, so millennial in the market, and a millennial that has more sophistication in real estate than other millennials because you grew up in a real estate family and you do this
No, it's my job,
professionally.
sure.
It's your job. Okay, so the advice that you're offering other millennials who are flooding this market right now, and I would think if there is a demographic that is, I hate to use the word bitter, but more bitter about this housing market than any, is probably the millennial.
Well, yeah,
Buyer.
right? Like you always dream of the
Absolutely.
moment that you're finally able to be in a place that you can purchase your own home and you're, growing your family. You'd love to be able to buy where you'd want to buy, right? You've done all those steps to get to where you are. You're a millennial, you're approaching 30, whatever that is, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, I did all the things and there's like nothing to choose from and I'm being forced to buy somewhere else because of the market. And so I think that's probably where bitter is coming from. Advice-wise, I'd just say be as prepared and as educated as you can possibly be. On your own and with your realtor, if your realtor's not educating you, get a different one that will, because it's vital, like you guys just brought up, that in order to compete in this market, you have to be well educated. You have to be well educated on every single step, what's going to come down the pipeline, what could happen to you, all the way through the buying process, right? It's just crucial to have knowledge. I mean, then also, as well as you can be prepared financially, the best credit score you can get, the larger down payment that you can really achieve, all of those things will help make a more competitive situation.
Somebody Pada is watching in Atlanta, Georgia, and sending us positive vibes with this market. So what are you telling your friends? I mean, you just kind of highlighted there. What are some of the trials and tribulations you're hearing from friends in this market?
Just losing.
Yeah.
Losing because they're on financing, and if they're against a cash buyer, almost they always win, So just like thinking, I feel like in a normal market, and it's weird for me to say because I don't know that I've been in a normal market, what you guys would consider normal,
Yeah,
because this
no.
is
Right.
like my
No.
normal,
It's
but
been a while.
I think in a normal market, they could take their current financial situation and win a house that they really love. That now, because of this situation, they're no longer able to. So I think, that's really difficult for millennial people. So I'm just telling them to know that you're going into a market that's a little bit competitive and that there's a chance that you may not get that first house that you absolutely fell in love with. But to not be discouraged, and if you need to take a break, you can take a break and then come back onto the market when you've had a little breathing time, because I know people get exhausted if they continuously lose. And it's just the nature of the game right now, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it really feels like this is the same group of people that for the last 5+ years who have had a challenge because of student loans too. So they graduated college, they now have these student loans, and now maybe they've gotten that, okay, so student loans, we've addressed this, we've figured out some things, we had a little bit of savings, we've got our debt to income ratio a little better, and now this is the market. So they worked really hard to get ready to buy that house, and now it's just like, oh, there's another thing.
Yeah, it's discouraging.
Yeah,
frankly,
it's very discouraging.
Jason Kirby.
The thing that I wonder is, what is this? What are we understand some of the factors here that are causing all of this. What I'm really curious about is, what are the long-term consequences of this experience right now on our future homeowners? How are they? And I think of my business in 10 years. what are these new owners going to be like when they go to sell their home? How are they going to negotiate? I'm very curious to see how it plays out. The millennial generation has surpassed the baby boomers in terms of plurality, in terms of dominance of our market. But they are possibly the most frustrated set of home buyers we've ever seen in this country ever.
I'd say it could translate to savage
There
sellers.
could be a lot of revenge.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's just like the continuation of bitter, right? It's just, there's, I think, going to be some maybe negative emotions associated with the whole process as a whole. And so they're like, oh, now I got to sell. And I'm just back in the same familiar kind of, it's just like, I don't want to say traumatizing, that seems a bit dramatic, but it's like they went through so much trauma to get to where they finally were homeowners that when they think about selling again, it could be like really hitting on some sore spots for them.
We didn't get to do a traditional home inspection.
Yeah.
We had to pay top dollar.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
had to compete against everyone.
Which is going to make,
We had to offer complimentary seller positions.
I know.
Yeah.
So where's my stuff? Right.
Yeah, so why would I turn around and do that for anyone else? Right.
Right. We're going to have to learn a whole new method of talking down, probably, in terms of bringing down someone from an elevated point to be like, look, but this is the reality of the market now.
I hadn't even thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't even, you want to go down this road? So they're basically saying the folks that are trying to buy now, that are being, they're going through essentially like pledging a fraternity to buy a house.
They're being hazed.
They're being hazed.
It
This is like home buying hazing.
Except it's not fun for anyone.
It's home buying hazing. So how is home buying hazing going to impact millennials when they start to get to baby boomer age or look to sell the home that they purchased for the first time? And what is that going to do to the next generation? That is a hell of a topic right there. Nikki Chambless, where do you want to go on this?
Well, that's that whole, right, local trusted advisor. Your local trusted advisor is going to be on top of what the market is. They're going to know who the sellers and the buyers are, and they're going to understand that, okay, this is a whole new shift of sellers, that in 5, 7, 10 years, whatever that looks like, this is what we have to do. This is how we have to help them best understand what they need to get what they want, right? Because if that is how they're feeling, which I could totally understand why, right? Then it's going to make it hard for them in 5 to 10 years to be able to sell their home well. So it's going to take talking them off the ledge a little bit and helping prep them better, just like we're helping prep people now. It's just for a whole nother market.
Joanne says you need a shot of tequila before and after this. Literally put that on the feed. Joanne, we'll get to some more comments here. This is from Daniel McDougall, who is a mortgage broker. DMAC, I love when you comment on the shows. He says, great panel today, lots of expertise, providing much needed context, perspective that you do not see in a lot of these national headlines. And he also agreed with the clickbait comment from Nikki. He says, there are adjustments in the upper end of the market happening now, but fortunately, those individuals are the most capable of handling them. Low to mid-range pricing will be tight for the foreseeable future. Jason Kirby, your thoughts on DMAC's comment there?
I agree, and especially when you touch on the top range in terms of pricing, that often feels things differently than the closer to the median price point. It's interesting because we look at the median prices and how it's gone up in Charlottesville, but it's very rare that I think any of us have been able to say, oh yeah, most of our deals wind up around that point. They're so rare that that's why that price just keeps trying to catch up to us. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you make of the, this is an interesting topic right here. What do you make of the 60 Minutes? Did anyone catch 60 Minutes last night?
Oh, I did
Negative.
No.
So 60 Minutes last night, and I was sent this by a handful of people. It featured tenants, millennials, that were trying to get into the market as buyers. And as their lease expired, the landlord raised rates, raised the monthly rent on the lease, basically 30%. And the landlord said, look, the market justifies this rent increase. So the tenants that they interviewed on 60 Minutes went and tried to do, all right, forget this, I'm going to go find another place. And when they went to try to find another place, they realized, oh my gosh, this 30% rent uptick is market justified, and these other places we're looking at, we cannot afford, so we have to stay in the current spot we are now. And Jason, they are paying rent to the landlord that is maybe even slightly below market
Right.
compared to everything else, and then they don't have the moving costs associated if they stay. But that monthly nut is more than they would have paid from a mortgage standpoint with the homes that they were trying to pursue.
Right.
So 60 Minutes was really trying to humanize and localize and personalize this plight. Your thoughts on this topic?
I think, and I've thought this for a while, we're all going to be paying more for housing as a percentage of our income in the future than we have in the past. And I don't mean like in nominal terms, I mean in real terms. It's going to be a higher amount of the money we make is going to go toward housing. What I think we're also seeing in communities and also in Charlottesville is we're looking at this displacement that is going on. When you're paying, say, $1,500 a month for your rent, and then it's coming up, you're thinking about going into the market to buy, but you're being told that actually the market rate is $1,900. Really what we're talking about is more people who have more money are coming in to bid you out of the home. That's essentially what we're looking at in economical terms. And this comes back to the lack of housing, whether it is housing in a lower price point, whether it's apartments, detached homes, townhomes, condos. There's just not enough there for us. And so we're going to see everyone get hurt at every point in the market.
Nikki Chambless, you have property that you own,
I
that
do.
you rent.
Yes.
What are you seeing with some of those rentals and some of the rentals around your property? And you know real estate as well as all. I mean, what's the pulse telling you here?
Well, I mean, the pulse is that it's stupid expensive to rent, no matter where you go that's anywhere close to the Charlottesville hub, right? My investment property is at Lake Monticello, and it's currently renting for $1,500 a month. It is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's just over 1,300 square feet, and that is not a bad price. It could probably get a little more, and I'm not trying to push that. I'm just not. You and I have talked about my perspective on investing, and just the general perspective on investing and that type of thing. The people just trying to get their foot in the door seem to be more willing to take a lower return on investment, whereas the people who are bigger seem to not. So honestly, us little guys out there swiping up some of the properties and renting them at a rate that is maybe a little more competitive and a little more cush on somebody's budget is a really helpful thing. It's a hard market to do that in, but hopefully we're helping the economy locally and helping people have something that is not killing their budget for housing.
This is a good answer. This is a good one from Grayson for Kara specifically. As a millennial, and you're on the younger side of millennial.
29.
Yeah, I'm on the older side of millennial. So this is a very good question specifically for you. Would you rather rent in an area you want to be in, or would you rather purchase if that means commuting 45 minutes to the area you want to be in? That's from Stacy, who is 27.
Hey,
And she
Stacy.
says, we would rather rent and be in walking distance of the downtown mall and enjoy quality of life like the restaurants and music we want to be around, as opposed to having to go 45 minutes and drive and knowing we'll never get an Uber to take us back home.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a comment.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I mean, it's a great comment, right? Because I think a lot of people are weighing those issues back and forth. I think I'm a little more biased because I grew up in Greene County, so a commute for me to get to Charlottesville was something that everybody did in the early 2000s because there was nothing out there. Everybody worked in Charlottesville, everybody came to town to do things, and you just went home, and that was normal. So for me, a commute actually isn't too scary, but I could definitely see why you would rather potentially be renting in the city to be within walking distance of, these activities that you'd like to be a part of, or these groups that you'd like to attend, or whatever it may be. I really think it's really a personal choice. It's completely unique to whoever's in that situation. Is owning a home more valuable than hanging out where you'd like to be? Those are all questions that you'd have to think about, right? Some people have no interest at all in being downtown and are happy to live out 40 minutes or 45 minutes and own their own home. So I think it's really a personal question. For me, I don't mind a commute. That's where I'm at because I'm from Greene.
Sure. She says, Stacy also adds, can we get back to Jason's comment about other ways of accumulating wealth? He mentions Hong Kong. Maybe it's just up to us now to find other sources of generational wealth as opposed to where we live.
Yeah, Yes, and I think, there are people who, and this kind of ties into what Kara's talking about and what the other questioner is, there are some people who think, well, based on my lifestyle, I don't see home ownership as really useful or beneficial because I'm going to move every 2 or 3 years. My brother lives in Airbnbs around the world. He can travel, he works online. And
it's awesome.
He can live wherever he lives, but he deliberately has one suitcase, and that's what he lives and works out of. That is a lifestyle choice.
That used to be me.
Right?
I've been there.
So I think when we look at that, like what does someone do if they're not doing that? I think your savings rate may have to be higher as a result of that, and so you have to watch your expenses more closely. You can still choose to invest in real estate, whether it's actually in individual properties or through a REIT, like a real estate investment trust, which is traded much like a stock. You can invest in stocks, bonds, all sorts of other hard tangible assets, all sorts of things, some of which throw off money and some of which are purchased and then resold later. But I think it would be talking to, a good thing to do is, if this is something you're weighing, is to get a hold of a really good financial advisor and have a very real conversation about what your very long-term goals are for retirement or lifestyle, and then work backward from that goal, because they'll be able to throw things in their computer and share good, helpful advice with you.
This is Katie Pearl. Katie
Katie.
Pearl, Keller Williams. We love you, Katie Pearl. She has this comment on the show talking about her investment property. She says, my husband and I had our renters want to extend their lease month to month. And even without us asking them, they offered us an additional $300 a month in hopes that we would keep them there. Obviously, it worked for us. So that's Katie Pearl speaking of the creativity that may be needed to withstand this volatile market. How about this one from a number of folks referencing the 60 Minutes episode from yesterday. Guys, watch the 60 Minutes episode. In fact, if you Google 60 Minutes March 20th, 2022, you'll get an article that summarizes what happens. Neil Williamson, we'll get to your comments here. And in that article that summarized what happened, Nikki, they talk about the corporate landlord scooping up inventory, eroding supply, and driving up price points. Not necessarily the mom and pop landlords like us, more like REITs, you use real estate investment trusts.
Hedge funds.
Hedge funds are getting in the mix.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, we got some big time landlords in this area that own like hundreds of rooftops in this community.
Yes.
But the 60 Minutes story characterized the corporate landlord as one of the issues of eroding supply. Anything you want to cover on this topic here?
Well, so I feel like we should be cautious not to just make them out to be the bad guys. It really depends on what they're doing with these properties. And to me, I've seen that very greatly. And a lot of times it depends on who's managing those properties. I've lived in a rental where I had 2 different property management companies in that rental. And I'm not going to name names. I'm just not doing it, right? But one was useless and made the experience of living in an older house that I was quite happy living in. I had a deal of a rent, but they made it much, much more challenging, right? And then the second property manager was on top of things and addressed my needs and was helpful and also increased my rent regularly, whereas the previous one didn't. And I would much rather have increased my rate a little bit to get better service for that. So that quality of life, depending on who's managing it, if you have, whether it's corporate or local, a slumlord situation, that sucks. That is not good for the economy. It's not good for our community and our people who work in our community, right? And we've talked about this multiple times on this show. I don't know that we're seeing a huge increase of those corporate people jumping in and swiping things up. Do they do that? Does that happen here? Absolutely. But I'm not seeing a huge jump in that. So, and if anyone else is seeing something different, please jump in here with our panel or our commenters, the people engaging in our shows.
Yeah, I think you're right about our local market. When we did see that, it was during the Great Recession, right?
Yes.
There was some of that going on here. But there are some markets out there where there are several thousand homes in those communities owned by a single entity. And so what occurs in an economy like that, in a housing economy, is when we have, let's say we had 3,000 homes and it was individual investors, we would have that inventory come and go flow into the market and flow back out of the market because people have their different goals. But when you have one corporate entity own several thousand, it's interesting to wonder at what point do they choose to sell, or at what point something economically occurs where they are forced to sell. What happens to Phoenix if I think it's BlackRock that owns several thousand homes in Phoenix? What happens if BlackRock goes under due to a scandal, and then Phoenix gets flooded with 3,000 or 4,000 homes in a period of like 90
the market
days,
crashes,
right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and yeah, I think here we're, like many things, we're a bit insulated. We're kind of a harbor here, but there are markets around the country where I wonder what goes on.
Emily Coulter in the mortgage business giving you guys props.
Hello,
Susanna
Emily.
Lane. Mary Kirby, is that family over there?
Yes, it's my mother.
Your Ma Dukes is giving you some props right now, and she's tagging Susanna Lane in the feed right now.
Yes, that's my sister.
So
Hello.
the
it's
Kirby
a family.
family well represented over here.
Yeah.
We love the Kirby family on the program. So this is from Erin King, one of Western Albemarle's finest graduates and someone we've dubbed the Queen of Scottsville. She says, I make that hike from Scottsville every single day. But the amount of house I can rent there makes it worth it to us, even with these gas prices. My sister pays $950 in Charlottesville for a studio in town with no closet, and she put no closet in all capital letters. Okay,
Yeah.
and she continues, Nikki, you're going to jump in here after I read this, okay? She continues,
Totally.
Erin King, for $300 more a month. So Erin and Rick are paying $1,200 a month. We get a whole house with lots of closets. Of course, we lucked out in our renting through a family friend.
Yes.
We would probably not be so lucky if we had to go through someone else, however. And she's highlighting Scottsville market here.
So even in Scottsville, that's really low rent for a whole house.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but when you're in that smaller community, you are more likely to find that. That rental that I'm referring to, I was in Scottsville. And what I was a single mom having my first apartment ever, which happened, almost exactly like 2 days ago in 2013. So it was March. But I was able to get a deal because I talked to the owners and I shared my situation. I was like, hey.
And you're a good person.
Thank you.
You're
I
likable.
appreciate that. But you're able to do that more in some of these tight-knit communities. It's just a little different. Yes, you're further out. You're remote. You don't have the hospital right there. There are things that you don't have. And on the other hand, there are a lot of things that you do, right? And Scottsville's a lovely place. I loved living there. So, and that wasn't my only place renting in Scottsville. One was a whole house that at that time was $1,250 a month, which it's probably now would be $1,500-$1,800 a month.
Which can I say?
Please.
Yeah.
Because it was owned by a single person, you had that opportunity to explain your story. Maybe it would be heard, right? When if it were owned by some mega entity, I don't know that would have mattered to anyone.
Probably,
you know?
You're
Probably not.
100%
Yeah.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
saying that in a nice way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like we're fortunate that hasn't happened in a mass way here, that we can still kind of have these personal moments with people where they're willing to make adjustments based on the fact that you are a nice person or you're a single mom or whatever that may be.
Yeah. But the lifestyle aspect is huge because like in Scottsville, like I had my chickens at one point. I had this big corner yard at one point. Not the
Area for your
apartment.
motorcycle?
Oh, well, not at that house.
Okay.
But even in the apartment, on the road was a very safe place to park my motorcycle. I still don't have a garage for that thing. That's just sad.
Can I just?
Please.
My friend has a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house that she is a rental property for her. She upped the rent to $2,000 from, I think it was like $1,800 or something, and was like, oh, I don't know if anyone's gonna want to rent this. It was on for 2 days. She had listed it available, and 2 days later had over 50 applications.
Yes.
And she was scared by raising that she wouldn't have any. And she was like, what happened? It exploded. And I said, yeah, because people are really in need of rentals right now.
How about the Daniel McDougall wants us to highlight the build-to-rent model. And he said the build-to-rent model came into fashion in 2021, and yet it is one more drain on the housing supply for buyers. So a phenomenon, and Neil Williamson highlights this, and he's the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. If you have not had a chance to read the Free Enterprise Forum, please do. It's fantastic. He says property owners have rights, even corporate landlords. We 100% agree with that. And he says the rental housing market is a critical component of the affordable housing market. And he adds the hashtag more housing everywhere for everyone. So Daniel's comment and Neil's comment are intertwined. And Daniel says the build to rent model came into fashion last year, and yet it is one more drain on the housing supply for home buyers this year. I'll give background and throw it to you guys. You're getting a lot of folks that are capitalizing on obscene rents that are happening now. And instead of building custom homes or mass production housing inventory for folks to buy, they're like, hey, why don't I build this and then rent it $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month, $1,800 a month, whatever it may be, and then I have a long-term investment that could potentially minimize some tax exposure as well. So this is eroding inventory for purchase. Jason, your thoughts on this topic?
It's true, and I think Neil is correct. And when we think about, if we were to take a step back and look at what happened in the Great Recession with a lot of these corporate landlords, in a way, that's not necessarily bad. The after effect could result in a negative impact on an economy, but if we imagined if no one had bought those homes, those markets would have languished and suffered for much longer than they did. For an entity to come in and just step up and take those all off the market, and I think what we're and you know, when we look at the desire of hedge funds and corporate entities to do that is really they're chasing cash flow, and when we're looking at build to rent, we're also looking at investors looking at chasing cash flow, and when we look at other areas with interest rates so incredibly low, there is almost no return on bonds. Again, you know, money markets return very little. With the rising book to value on stocks, the income on stock dividends is very low, and so people are looking for this. So anyone who has a well-performing rental property will wonder where else they're going to be able to dispose and allocate that money where it's going to return anything like that. So no, I think Neil's correct. Is, you know, we need housing in all levels of this market in order for things to loosen up.
Grayson wants us to highlight rent to own. Is rent to own something that you guys like or can offer perspective on?
One of my very first clients, and, you know, this lady called me and said, hey, you know, I would like to own my own home. I'm looking for a situation where I can rent to own. And I had to have a very frank conversation that it is so few opportunities for rent to own within Charlottesville city limits that I was like, unless you're going to plan on being a little bit further out, even then I think it can be complex. But
Yeah.
I said, you know, these are some steps to get you to a buying situation, and I recommend these and I'll help you get there. But rent to own, unfortunately, just doesn't really exist here.
I think one of the drawbacks is it's just not the right market for it.
Right.
Typically,
It's also a slippery slope, potentially.
very much, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to talk
For
about
both
that too.
parties.
For both,
Yeah.
right,
Is
yeah.
Yes.
one of the challenges that I used to see, and this is going back 20 years, is in Phoenix we would call that a lease option, and the danger of it was there were investors who couldn't pocket a premium on the property. Like right in this market, you can pocket a premium on a
Yeah.
property, just put it on the market. What they would do is they would say, well, you have poor credit, okay, I'll go ahead, we'll sign a contract, we've got the lease here and we have the option to buy. You're going to pay this much more per month that's going to go aside for the option to purchase the property at this price, and then the investor would often set that as an unrealistic price. 12 months rolls around, the buyer doesn't want to exercise the option because it was overpriced, because they didn't know, and the investor basically is collecting a maybe 20% premium on their rent annually, and they just get the next person to come in and do the same thing. And this was an unfortunate practice that was going on around 2000. And so I think in this market, if that were to happen, it would just have to be where we had much more supply on the market. I just don't see that as being a common thing. I have not run into it.
Even 4 or 5 years ago, this was challenging, and that was a much easier market to be a buyer in, right? And I had several people who were trying to do that exact thing, and I actually worked very hard trying to help them do it because I understand the need, I understand the desire there, and it was just not a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Lisa Costello, this is an interesting topic. Our society at times is insulting or not kind to adults who still live at home with their parents. If it is a mutually agreeable solution, it can be helpful to all. Adult children helping their parents and sharing bills as needed allows adult children to save for down payments to buy. pushing kids out at 18 or at 22 where they could be faced to $1,500 a month rent. That can be a cycle of debt that they can never get ahead of. Of course, this would not work in all families. Each family is different. So it is important to highlight this. The multi-generational
Yes.
family model has been more prevalent than ever before. And the multi-generational family model is basically what it is. Parents, kids, maybe grandparents under the same rooftop to share either the cost burden or because inventory is so tight. Are you guys seeing that, Kara? Why don't you jump in here? Are you guys seeing that multi-generational households in this market?
Yes, I think more so than before this market really got hectic, but not in comparison to other places in the world, right? I mean, it is standard in a lot of other countries to
Exactly.
live with generations, not only because of finances, but because of culture. And so, for us to find it abnormal is odd for me. Maybe I just am used to having friends that do it, or I know people, or I've been places where it's normal. And so I think we can't shame anybody for this situation that they're in and trying to make things work for them. I think we have to be broader in our thinking and say, hey, that works for that person, and let them go on their merry way, you know? But yes, I do see it happening more within the United States than I had previously.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you're right. I've heard something about like the market in Spain, and it's very common for someone to live until their 30s, 40s, saving up for a down payment for a property.
Yeah.
And I think there are probably two factors in play where we see this developing and becoming maybe even a permanent situation. We have rising home prices, and we have incredibly rising costs in elder care. And the idea of having someone in place taking care of someone is great. So I think it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And like the commenter had said, it really depends upon the personalities involved. I think what we would be seeing in our economy, which would be new, is the more this happens is we're going to become a less mobile society. Now it's very common, like you raise children potentially, and those children maybe go to college or don't, but they get a job and they often move away. And maybe we'll see less and less of that. Maybe people will stick around. Speaking personally, like I have two little ones, and I hope they never move away. I don't know how to trap them here, but
Wow.
I can't imagine that.
Yours must be better behaved than our son. It's amazing, Jason.
I won't say that, but yeah.
Amazing.
My first goal was literally to move to the other side of the planet.
And did you do that?
I did, yeah.
And
yeah,
she did that.
21.
But you're back.
Yeah, well, because what's
Exactly.
funny is when you travel abroad, I think when I was born and raised in Charlotte, so I had this kind of I was like, man, it's so boring here. As like a young person, I was like, there's nothing to do. It's just trees and hills and streams. And I was in Green, right? So that's all that really was there growing up. And then as I moved away and came back to visit, slowly the plane would come down out of the sky. And I thought, oh, wow, these mountains are so pretty.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, yeah, but I still hate it. I'm leaving. So I'd go back and live somewhere else. And then I'd come back and be like, oh, yeah, all my friends are here. And I really love like this connection of people that I have here. So slowly.
And did you not persuade the man to move here? Did you?
I can't, my man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't talk about anything.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I don't know if that's the rules here.
Yeah, all
Okay.
I can say is watch the show, question mark, yeah.
Okay. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Go ahead. So we should plug the show, right?
We can plug it, yeah.
Yeah.
So 90 Day Fiancé, season 9. I'm part of the cast. Local girl here if you want to watch some drama unfold. April
And when would
17th.
Okay, I was going to say, when are we
Is
going
the
to see
premiere?
this?
Yeah,
Yes.
April 17th. I believe it's Easter Sunday at 8 p.m.
On what network?
TLC.
Okay. I really didn't know that we
I think
couldn't
you
talk
can,
about this.
Yeah, I can talk about details. I can just say, tune in.
Okay, there you go. That's a teaser right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. I
I
can
love the
tease all
finger
day
pointing
long.
as well. I love that.
But long story short, getting out and coming back, it really puts it into perspective when you go out and see other things that are happening in the world, and then you can say, wow, where I'm from is actually not that bad. Maybe it's not the most exciting place, but it's also a really lovely place. And obviously, multiple people feel that way. That's why there's a housing shortage.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's absolutely
Yeah.
amazing here. So, gosh, the comments are coming
Okay.
in fast and furious right here.
We're still in generational housing.
yeah, you
though.
wanna hit this
I
one?
do, because
Okay.
I feel like, and I don't really know, which is why I'm saying I feel like, but I feel like there's something about the whole American dream, white picket fence, suburbs.
Oh,
that
no
happened,
doubt.
Right,
Yeah.
years and years ago, that really kind of screwed us over. Because the reality is there's a lot of benefit to generational housing. There's a lot of support. You hear people talk about it takes a village, but we have done anything and everything in our power to not actually be a village. to have the privacy and have, not actually see our neighbors and a lot of disconnect. And while I get a lot of us are connected and we have our people in a village, I do feel like our society as a whole has moved as far away from that as possible. And I think that there are many, many countries where living with your parents and cousins or family members is not only common, you wouldn't even think of why would I live by myself? That's crazy town. And now granted, I'm an introvert, so the idea of being by myself is not a scary thing at all. And I would still need to have people around me regularly, right? Currently, I have a youngest kiddo who's in high school, and I have my eldest kid who is 20, works, and their girlfriend that live with me. And at some point, my mom knows any day she could knock on my door and move in, and the basement's hers. That's her and her boyfriend, who is basically like my stepdad. Because that would be a thing that would work well, and it'd be wonderful and lovely. And it would be different, and it would have different challenges, but it would also have amazing benefits to that.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, great take right there. Philip Down, we'll get to yours. Guys, we're trying to get to as many comments as possible here. They are coming in super fast and furious. Neil says, if folks do stick around, though, will there be enough jobs for them in this community? Which is a very good topic. Kevin Yancey, we dubbed the king of Waynesboro, is watching the show, and he has this topic, which I think is a good one. Do we expect, so why don't you hit Neil's topic about jobs, and then Kevin Yancey's is really good. Are we going to expect more apartment conversions to condos to meet the buyer demand that's happening here in this market?
You could. I'm not very familiar, though, with the amount of older condos, the older apartments we have that would be ripe for conversion. We saw that a lot in Scottsdale, Arizona, around the time when it made sense for a lot of that to occur. And aside from usually higher assessments and association dues to deal with like older systems, it actually worked out incredibly well because they were smaller units and they met a need in the market. But I think when it comes to jobs with our three main employers, I think it all depends upon the decisions they make, right?
Yeah.
And I could see that being a main driver. I am concerned, though, about the service industry in this area, because when we look at the price of housing, we realize there's going to be a direct impact on what those people are going to need for wages to attract them here if they have to drive 45 minutes. And so I think that the service industry, a lot of the entry-level positions are just, the cost of a lot of things in the city, I think, are just going to go up. The cost of dining, anything, is just going to have to increase.
Nikki Chambless. And Suzanne Reel has given you some props. She says, great comments. Suzanne Reel is actually managing a condo that I own that's a rental that is an apartment conversion. The villas at Southern Ridge used to be apartments called Country Green.
That's right.
Off Fifth Street Extended,
Okay.
and is now the villas at Southern Ridge condos, and Allied Property Management manages that. So she's giving you props and saying great comments from you, Nikki. Jason, you'll love this. Is it Barbara Guritin?
Yes.
She's so very proud of you. She's
Hi,
absolutely
Barbara.
Wow, all the support for Jason.
so very proud of you. Jason Kirby's got the community on his side right now. Kevin Yancey, you're exactly right. Converted. Country Green, Hessian Hills, Solomon Court. Dude, the viewership and listenership is so
they're amazing.
freaking on point
Yes.
right here. So you can't you got to be on point when you're doing these shows. Any topics you want to cover so far here, Nikki Chambless?
So I just want to say, Suzanne also manages my property. So,
Suzanne Reel.
Yeah, she manages my Allied Property Management. And I see people everywhere saying, we need people to hire. I think the challenge is we also, part of this whole society big picture aspect, right? We have a lot of employers who have been able to pay people very little and offer very little in return to what people are giving. And you combine the market that we're in, the economics that we're dealing with, along with COVID, and it's just not worth it for people. Not because they're sitting around making bank some other way, but because it's not worth it for them to go into a job that pays crap and treats them badly when they have kids they're trying to figure out how to get to and from school, and there's no longer the same support with that structure of the school system.
And
a lot of people, and a lot of times people can't ride the bus anymore, right? Because those are overwhelmed, right? So now parents who used to rely on a bus system cannot. So we have all of these things. And also it's kind of like COVID life just has a lot of people reevaluating what they're willing to put up with.
Katie Pearl, too, the commentary is coming in fast and furious for Jason Kirby over here. Katie Pearl saying, loving the new haircut, Jason Kirby over there.
Thank you,
I think I
Katie.
said that to the guy before the show started over here. Katie Pearl, we love when you watch the program here. So, Kara, your thoughts here. This market, we got Redfin, we got Zillow, we got folks, established brands, macro-wise, that are saying that this is going to be worse before it gets better. We know that UVA is hiring more people than ever. We continue to emphasize the data science school that is close to opening down Ivy Road, that is going to be a world-class school, essentially on the Charlottesville line in Ivy. That is going to impact things. UVA is going to admit more students than ever this fall. They have to live somewhere.
Yep.
If they live somewhere, that's going to take up some rooftops as well. What are your feelings of what this market is going to do for the next 12 months to 24 months?
Unfortunately, I think it is going to get a little bit complicated to try to find housing. I mean, it kind of goes back to that question of, are we going to be able to have jobs for all of these people? I think Charlottesville has this wonderful mechanism that's always brought really solid jobs into the area, which also brings more people, though, and then also makes housing a little bit more difficult to obtain. And so I don't know that it'll get easier, at least for a little while.
Yeah,
I mean,
think she's right.
it is what it is, right? I mean, I don't know that, and I don't know that there's any two ways about it. Like, I don't know that there is, every single sign is kind of pointing to it getting more difficult.
What do you think, Jason?
I think, we're inviting a major increase in cost of living here.
Yeah.
And what we typically will see on the real estate side is when working with a prospective buyer is when they are considering taking a job in a high cost of living area, they don't put down roots. They're like, well, I'll rent. I'll bite that bullet for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, just see how it goes, but I'm not going into that market to buy. It just seems very expensive. And I think that's what we're going to deal with, is we're going to have a renter-heavy market probably here, in the city.
Kelsey says this, ask the panel their take on affordable housing and if it's a reality.
So I think that at first glance for me, projects like Southwood give some hope for the future if there can be multiple organizations coming at this issue from different angles and creating a space to integrate all stakeholders in the community into one domain. The thoughtfulness in that project of trying to create spaces, then relocate folks into a better living situation and making them a part of that community, I think is a noble one. I know my understanding is Southwood's going to take years and years and years. So I think what we're all looking for is, where is the bullet that fixes this problem right now? And I don't know where that is. I also don't know where the next Southwood's going to be, because I feel like we need a few of them.
Yeah.
Just in terms of
29.
housing inventory, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys see Sean Tubbs, Town Crier Productions? So this is a topic to follow here. Something I'll talk about on the I Love CVille show later today. More housing everywhere for everyone is absolutely a good thing. This is happening in Seminole Square Shopping Center. Seminole Square Shopping Center, this is Town Crier Productions, Great Eastern Management Company, has filed new plans to redevelop 23.9 acres of the Seminole Square Shopping Center. There's a public meeting about this on, I believe, Wednesday, where staff is going to talk about this. In all, Great Eastern Management seeks to build 352 units on the site of Seminole Square Shopping Center. 352. This just came out, so I don't expect anyone to be, super deep researched on this. I know we're all in favor of more housing everywhere for everyone, as Neil Williamson has said. 352 units, Jason, in Seminole Square Shopping Center. What comes to mind?
Well, what comes to mind is, I think back to my clients who, a variety of them that purchased in Brook Hill Commons on Route 29. And there was a builder who provided an attractive price point, and you could get a 3-bedroom condo for, starting around close to $250. Now, those are all sold out, And all the phases have waiting lists because they need more and more stuff like that. So when I think of that, I think and I hope that it is close to, maybe we can hope for under median price point. At least some of it is to where an actual family could possibly move in, or a group of roommates could move in and share costs.
What do you think, Nikki?
I think that would be lovely, and truly that would be the hope, is if they can take this and use it to help ease our housing need and also address some affordable housing, and not call it affordable housing and then price it in the 400s. That's not going to get it.
I was totally going to
That's
bring
just
that
not
up.
okay.
Yeah.
Like what affordable actually is for most of the people that can't afford, to buy a house right now in this market. Like, what does that look like for a lot of people? Because people are like, affordable, 400,000. I'm like,
Yeah, that's the lowest
No.
price, and it's unaffordable
Yeah,
for many
yes.
people.
I don't know how many people
Thank
can
you
afford
for
that.
providing houses and options, and also let's not call that affordable.
I think there's a term that I've learned, I forget who it was from on this network, it may have been Neil. It was, instead of affordable housing, it's housing affordability. Because affordability is different depending on your personal circumstances.
Sure.
So everyone's circumstance is different. So maybe we need to start calling it housing affordability instead of affordable housing.
Well, if it's not going to be affordable, then yeah.
Right, exactly. Philip, and we'll wind down, guys. We'll try to get to as many of these as possible. You may have talked about this, but I'm sure mortgage rising interest rates will impact this market. With rates rising and taxes increasing on homes and on personal property, it's going to make things very sticky for a lot of people. And then Neil says, for what it's worth, the Great Eastern Project is located on a transit line near government services and retail. And he says, Free Enterprise Forum does not take positions on these projects. So he emphasizes that, and I'm trying to read between the lines here, where these additional units may not necessarily need to be car-centric units, which we know that if there's going to be beef on this, it's going to be associated with infrastructure and how 300 and some units is going to impact roads and congestion and infrastructure. So he's emphasizing, look, it could be public transportation-based inventory, which is good for everybody.
Yeah.
Why don't we close with this? And Nikki, we'll start with you. What are you offering perspective-wise to agents, team leader, and to customers that you're working alongside?
Okay, I would say to agents, really know your value. Have a business plan. Know what it is you're doing. Know what it is you're bringing to the table. This is not the time to be a hobbyist agent. This isn't the time to even be an investor agent if what you're investing is probably very minimal, right? So, and then to those clients, truly, you've got to have a local trusted advisor. Loop them in as early as you possibly can. This is not okay, now I'm ready, now I want to get my realtor. No. Loop them in the beginning so that they can help you and guide you and give the advice, because they do this every day, truly, day in and day out. And they're going to have your best interest at heart because they legally have to. And if they're not, they should be called out on that.
Well said.
So yeah, local trusted advisor. I can't say it enough.
Well said. Jason Kirby, show is yours.
I think home buyers right now need to be working with that fiduciary 90 to 120 days prior to when they want to make a decision or do something, minimum. And a lot of that conversation that'll be had is not just educating yourself as a consumer about our market here, but also in learning about the strategies and tactics an agent can employ to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes up on the market, because they still do, very rarely though, but they do happen. And it'll make your life much, much easier. And it'll help you decide if this is something you should be doing. If you find out when you meet with your advisor that this is not your market, you have just freed up hours of Zillow perusing for the next few months that you can go do something more constructive with in your life.
And so could your agent.
Right, exactly. Leave it to your agent. And then with sellers, I think same thing. You got to talk with your agent about where you're going to be going to before you go too far down that road.
The fabulous Kara Bass, show is yours.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of what you guys just said, I think having a strategy, not just popping up on a house that you think you want to be yours, but really working with someone continuously on your path to getting either where you want to be or from starting where you want to be to getting where you're going. It's important to have a strategy in this market. You can't just be a hobbyist agent or buyer, right? Like you got to be well informed and well educated, everybody on all sides, to be competitive. And so, find a realtor that is very educational, can get you where you need to go, and should be pretty good.
The show was on fire.
Yeah.
For those that we did not get to your comments, we apologize here. They were, I don't know if you guys saw my fingers over here, but I have
Yeah.
calluses
Burning.
on the
You're
tips of
busy.
my fingers over here while trying to host the show. Thank you for participating. The feed was absolutely in fuego. This is a panel of experts on the program, and I love the Monday panels. Seriously, I love the Monday panels. Nikki Chambless put this one together, team leader at Keller Williams. I look forward to them.
I love it, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jason and Kara, for being
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
you guys rocked. Seriously, thank you.
Pleasure.
Judah Wickhauer, thank you for what you do. He's our director. For Nikki, Jason, Kara, and me, I'm Jerry. This is Real Talk on a Monday presented by Keller Williams Alliance, guys. We will see you on the I Love CVille show in 1 hour and 2 minutes with some hot topics to cover. You guys have a good morning. Take care. Well done.